Hi guys, hope you're ready for our last sunny day before we get some storms by the looks of it. We are on to chapter 10, and that is called The Voyage. The air grew dense with thunder, and dark anvil-shaped clouds flashed with lightning as the umbrella snaked along the River Thames. As night set in, the buildings along the riverbank thinned, until they were replaced by fields of sun-scorched grass, swishing in the gloom above muddy brown waters rippling along the marshland. Further ahead, the river expanded into a vast blanket of water, like an enormous wet slate floor, white crests of waves somersaulting across its surface. Above it, the sky blackened in an inhospitable temper, as if displeased that the umbrella had entered its house uninvited, blowing a forbidding wind in its direction. Pip woke with a start, feeling the umbrella bump and sway on the choppy waters beneath her. Groggily lifting her head and opening her eyes, for a brief moment she thought she was at home in the umbrella shop. But as she shivered against the cold, she quickly realised she was alone, and a long shuddering sigh escaped her lips as she remembered the horror of the sadness of the day before. A chilly midnight air blustered about her fur as she clambered up to the umbrella handle and stared into the gloom behind her. Pip had drifted far from the riverbanks of London and into the Thames estuary. Turning to face the waves merging into the North Sea beyond, she was astonished to see a group of curious metal houses standing out of the water on stilts. Each had 2 floors and a row of glass windows and a bridge connecting it to its neighbour. Huge long-barrelled guns pointed into the sky from every roof. Pip's ears flattened, hearing a mechanic rattle approaching high above. Her heart shivered as it grew louder, and suddenly the guns screamed to life in a blaze of light, firing into the night sky and making the air shudder. A pointed black plane with stumpy wings and a thick tail dropped through the clouds, smashing into the sea. A tower of white water soared into the air, and the umbrella surged up and down in a sickening sway. A strange clattering sounded above her as strong beating wings and curved black claws dived through the sky towards her. Lurching backwards out of harm's way, Pip's heart clamoured in her ears as she felt the empty air close around her, pulling her towards the choppy waters below. "Don't worry, little lady," a deep velvety voice cooed in an American accent. At the same moment, bony claws snapped around her wrist and yanked her upwards to the handle. "We gotcha!" Thunder rumbled. Before her, Hans straddled the back of a broad-chested pigeon with a white stripe across his beak. "How did you find me?" Pip said, scowling with annoyance. "Dickon went straight back to Bernard Booth when you ran away," Hans said, and a smile drew across his scarred face. "You've got guts doing what you did." "Guts?" The pigeon laughed as the rat dismounted, carrying a pouch made from a tied-up red and white polka-dot handkerchief. Unravelling it, he expertly rigged it to the umbrella handle with a string. "Crazy ass stubbornness, I'd say. Nobody has ever backed Bernard Booth into a corner like you have. He sent us to make sure that message gets to where it needs to go, and now we've got no choice but to take you with us." He cocked his head at the scroll tightly clasped in Pip's paw. "I believe you have something that belongs to me, miss." "No," she said, drawing the paper close to her chest. "I'm delivering it to the French resistance." A crash of thunder boomed above, making each of them cower in alarm. Fat raindrops pitter-pattered about them, drenching their fur and feathers. "This is G.I. Joe," Hans said, shouting over the howling wind. "He's the fastest pigeon we have, and that message must get to Noah's Ark in Normandy by midday tomorrow." "But I need it," Pip said desperately. "It's all I have to help me get to Italy." "If you don't give G.I. Joe the scroll, we'll miss our chance," Hans said, gravely staring into her eyes. "The message is worthless if it doesn't get to the resistance in time, and you don't know where you're going." The rat clenched his jaw with impatience. "Pip, you have no idea what you're doing. You are drifting on open seas." Hans' words hit Pip's pride like a blow to the face. He was right. She didn't know which way she was sailing, or how she would locate the resistance in Normandy, nor had she thought about how long it would take to find them. She didn't think it would matter. She just needed to get to France, and then she'd look for them. "And if the message gets into the wrong hands, you waste all the work we've done." He held out his paw for the scroll. "Give it to me now, Pip. Lives are at risk." "Fine," she frowned, slamming the scroll into Hans' open paw, with shame burning inside her. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Believe me," G.I. Joe cooed as Hans urgently inserted the scroll into a small canister attached to the bird's ankle. "This message will pave your way to Italy." He glanced at Hans, and his amber eyes glowed with determination. "See you on the other side." With a robust flap of his wings, G.I. Joe soared upwards into the thundering black clouds and disappeared in a flash of lightning. "Pull that rope!" Hans pointed to a knot of string by Pip's rear paw, and released the sail. "Why should I?" she said, resenting the rat for being right and ruining her plan. "I didn't ask you to help me to get to France." "My apologies, Your Majesty. Were you looking forward to drowning at sea?" he said, smiling sarcastically, with the gale swirling about his whiskers. "Because I can throw you over the side, if that is what you wish." Pip scowled and coldly stared into his eyes. Returning her withering look, Hans calmly held her gaze as another clap of thunder sounded above. Neither of them flinched, but Pip crossed her arms tight to control her trembling limbs. A strong gust of wind blew fiercely from below as Pip's paws slipped on the umbrella handle. Gasping in alarm and grappling the empty air for something to hold, she lost her balance. As she tumbled backwards, Hans immediately leaped forward and snatched her back to safety by the scruff of her neck. "Wrap your tail around the handle and don't let go," he yelled. She did so at once. "And pull that rope, or I won't bother saving your life again." Putting her pride to one side, Pip obediently tugged at the rope, and instantly the polka dot handkerchief billowed in the gale. Grabbing the string in his paw, Hans tied it to the silver handle. As he effortlessly harnessed the wind in the taut sail, the umbrella surged forward and stormed across the water. "Next stop, France," he said, his ripped ears blowing in the storm. His leathery scars creased around his face in a smile, and Pip realised for the first time that he was handsome. "Pip," Hans said, his arms shaking with the force of the wind in the handkerchief, "take this and point the arrow to S.E." He handed her a brass button, much like the others Mrs. Smith helped Mr. Smith use to fasten his shirt cuffs before they went to church on Sunday. The lid opened with a click. Inside looked the same as a clock face, except instead of numbers, the letters N, N-E, E, S-E, S, SW, W, and NW ran clockwise from where the number 12 normally lived. An arrow flickered between them. Turning until the arrow quivered on SE, Pip pointed her paw out to sea. "That way!" she cried. "Listen to me!" Hans shouted over the wind and rain howling above them. "Whatever happens in the next few hours, if we lose our course, we'll end up in enemy territory, and I don't plan on dying today." He stared at the compass. "You are my guide. Keep SE and we'll reach the resistance in Normandy. If you drop it, you kill us. Do you understand?" She nodded, gripping the compass tightly in her paws. All night, Pip kept the arrow flicking on SE and shouted directions whenever Hans went off course, the storm circling above them. The umbrella climbed one towering wave after another, plummeting down the backs of them into dark troughs of water. As they climbed the crest of a monstrous wave, a furious snarl tore through the sky. In a terrifying explosion of hot water, a scorching violet dagger of lightning pierced the peak they had just left. Startled with fright, the compass slipped through Pip's fingers and disappeared into the flooded umbrella canopy below. "What are you doing?" Hans cried over the gale, watching in alarm as the little mouse scrambled down the umbrella handle and dived into the canopy after the compass. "Tie yourself to something!" But Pip didn't hear. Taking a deep breath, she plunged underwater. It was strangely peaceful under the surface, as though she had left the storm behind a closed door. Swimming inside the rain and seawater collected in the canopy, a flash of lightning shone across the surface of the compass, where it was lodged between the uppermost ribs of her umbrella. Her chest screaming for air, Pip embraced the compass with both arms and tugged, but it remained stubbornly unmoving. Struggling to pull it free, the urgent need to breathe drummed inside her ears. As the umbrella climbed another wave, the water inside the canopy rushed backwards and poured it over the side and into the sea. Suddenly, the compass popped free, sending Pip backwards through the water towards the canopy's edge. She grappled for something to hold, and making a desperate leap, she snapped both paws around the edge of the umbrella rib. Trembling all over, she dragged her sodden body upwards and clambered up the pole towards Hans. "What are you doing?" he bellowed, grabbing her by the scruff of the neck and roughly pulling her to his side of the umbrella handle. "I told you not to let go." Pip was panting too urgently with fear to reply. Above them, the clouds swirled together, collecting all their fury in a shuddering fist. As the umbrella began another sickening plunge into the valley of water, the storm threw its deadly punch. A gargantuan bolt of lightning pummeled the wave, and the umbrella vaulted into the sky. Oh dear, I think I'm saved. Yes, we'll save the rest for tomorrow, and I will see you again then. So have a think. The umbrella's just tipped upside down in the sea. It's not looking good. Right, we will see if she's okay tomorrow. Bye.